Do you want to get your Recluse absolutely broken? Absolutely destroy the early game bosses as well as the endgame ones. Run through NPCs and collect runes very quickly, as well as having a full setup for early, mid, and endgame Recluse. And get your Remembrance 8 as fast as possible. Being able to get some of the best relics in the entire game very easy. And also go over some of the best spells to prioritize. We'll go over the gearing process, what you should avoid. Then I got the build and tip guide for you. What's up, World of Utopia here, back with another video. Today we're checking out all things Elden Ring Nightreign. Let's just jump right into it. So jumping over first, we do need to realize what we're going to prioritize with our relic. Then I'll get into the early, mid game, and late game builds so you understand how we're putting those together. But here's the Recluse relic priority. In my opinion, you might have something different here that you kind of want to go with, but these are what essentially I would say is probably the best setup here. Well, first off, your ultimate art gauge is #1. It is the #1 priority. I think this one's undisputed at this point, really, at least in my opinion as well. This thing is incredible. Your ult on your Recluse is absolutely incredible. You'll see once you pop this, you actually do create blood loss, and you do a lot of damage. You increase damage. Also refund all the mana you basically spend, and sometimes even more than what you spent on an ability, and you also do regenerate health. So you're basically just be able to spam your spells. Really is only dependent on how much stamina you have, where you're popping your ult and doing a ton of damage. But this also applies to your teammates. They will also regenerate health and FP or mana every time you are hitting an enemy. So this is absolutely insane. It does decent initial damage. It's not a crazy ton. That might be why it's throwing some people off, but the ultimate itself is insane. Lasts about 15 seconds and just helps you do a ton of damage with it. So it is really nice to have. That is #1 priority. Then we're going to go over to collecting affinity residue, or we're collecting from mobs. Obviously, we're regenerating our FP that way. If you didn't know the collecting system there, when you do cast a spell, there will be a little thing on them, a little arrow circle thing. When you do pull that back with your ability or with your keybind, I don't know what it is on controller. I play on mouse and keyboard, so it's E for me. When I do hit that, it brings back your mana. That's going to lead us onto Terra Magica. So we have one here that does give us Terra Magica, essentially nearly almost every single time you collect. Now, it does have a bit of a cooldown period there. This is going to bump your damage up by, I believe, 22%. That's what it is, at least in the Elden Ring base game. We don't have the exact stats for everything, but that's just kind of comparing it. So 22% damage increase. It does align a bit with the math on some of these abilities, so it is very, very strong. Next up here, we have Suffer Blood Loss equals attack power on art activation. Yes, again, another really good one, increasing attack power for literally everybody, increasing it for yourself, and the blood loss is quite insane. You can pair up really, really nicely with some characters. This one is incredible and to prioritize there. Then we have magic attack power up. We're just increasing our damage there so we can push out as much damage as we can. Then we have intelligence followed by mind. And those are your stat prioritizations in my opinion. As intelligence and mind vary, they don't add a ton of damage, at least in my opinion, compared to magic attack power up. That I do believe is a little bit stronger than intelligence. At least when I did some math comparisons there, it does feel like it can be stronger. And it is also easier to get a +2 for magic attack power, where the intelligence isn't as easy to get. Although you'll see with one of the things that we can buy in the shop, it is very strong and we can get that. The rest of the ones here, I wouldn't really pick. Activating Alt raises max HP. You could go with that one. I don't really think it's that good. It is only a temporary buff. It is decent on certain boss fights. You might want to swap that out for certain ones if you're struggling, but I wouldn't prioritize that one right off the bat. The situational resistance and damage negation up, and then the rune gain. I really don't think rune gain is too good. I've seen a lot of people run it, but it's just overall only about 10%, I believe. And more than likely you're going to get something from in-game that you can get it. So I wouldn't prioritize that, and someone else might be running it anyways. You really want to just focus on damage and pushing your character as hard as you can. So when we jump over to our relics here, we go into, and we're going to see our different slots here. Now, I'm going to go over early game stuff. You'll probably start with this one, but realistically, I would try to get the Recluse Goblet as fast as you can. You can buy it from the shop, I believe, only for a few hundred of the in-game currency. Just a better setup here with the red, blue, and yellow. It's going to give you a lot more to choose from, and you'll see here what I was prioritizing early game, the collecting affinity if you can get one of those, and then also the ultimate art gauge, a +2 one here. I would try to get at least a +2 or +3, and then we also have another +3 here. So you see I'm prioritizing the ultimate like crazy because that's what's kind of bumping and boosting up your damage a ton on those boss fights so you can take them down very, very quickly and push through. You're going to see majority of the time people are just running to bosses now, and so they're kind of just farming those instead of farming the little mobs. And so the magic attack power, in my opinion, doesn't matter a ton early game. At least you want to fill your ultimate as fast as you can. Stood still if you can get a magic attack power up. I didn't have one back then when I was first running this. That's why I run the ultimate art gauge. But again, we're going off what our resources have. Next up here, I did get the Recluse Chalice. Also get the Vestige of the Night, which is a really good one. This gives you that Recluse collecting affinity, which you're basically popping the Terra Magica, as I said earlier, and you're getting magic attack power up +2, so quite huge there. We also have the +3 on the art gauge from our previous one, and then after defeating, I believe, the second or third boss, I can't remember exactly which one, but you do get the Bone-like Stone. They suffer blood loss, increases power up. Activating also raises your max HP, and you get a +3 to intelligence. These two on here are really good. Like I said, the activating raises max HP. Not really utilized too much, but it comes on it, so you might as well use it. And you're getting intelligence plus the suffer blood loss and increased power up on your art activation. We're endgame now. We're going to take, and I believe that you get this after defeating the last boss or defeating 4 bosses. It might be Remembrance 5. Can't remember exactly when you do get this one, but you can buy this from the shop. We will then take the first 2 again. These are really good. You're going to be running these probably for a long time until your RNG plays into account. But then we're also going to take this one, the Grand Tranquil Scene, which is +3 to art gauge and improve crystalline sorcery. There's a bunch of sorcerer spells that are in the crystalline tree, and so essentially a lot of our abilities I'm going to show you will play into that majorly. So if you didn't know, you can get your relics from this guy in case you haven't seen already, and we're going to get that Spirit Shelter Grail. That's a decent one, and we have the Recluse Goblet that I ran earlier. These two are really, really good. You could also maybe try the yellow one, but I haven't had any experimentation with that. These are the 2 you're going to want to run, though. Those are the 2 that I picked out. Jumping over, we're going to get to the early game spells. Now, of course, you start with the basic one where you're not really casting much or doing much, but I want to go over the spells that I find to be the absolute strongest when you're starting out, and then also ones that are really good for boss fighting. So first off, the most broken one right now, the strongest spell in the game in my opinion, especially with your alt charge, is the Shattering Crystal. Now this thing is just quite insane. It just does so much damage off the bat. You'll see it does a lot of damage on bosses. It's doing a lot of damage here in the practice range too. It does so much damage on bosses, on mobs. It's really easy to cast, really easy to get off, and if you get fast casting, it makes it even quicker. And so you're really going to want to utilize that in boss fights, especially when you do pop your alt. If you can get close. Now, if it's a melee intensive fight and you can't get close up or you don't get a stagger, you want to play at range, right? So more than likely, you're going to only want to use this ability early on, and then when you get to the end of the boss or the day 3 boss, you're going to want to swap. Now, what do I swap for? Usually I use the Magnum Shot instead, so I swap out for Magnum Shot. The reason being is Magnum Shot puts a nice little, it doesn't do a ton of damage, but it puts this nice tick rate on the ground. So if you see, we'll pop down the fire on this practice dummy here, and now we get actually multiple casts of this because of the tick rate. This is really good for mana regen. That's why I like it a lot. It also allows us, so when we pop this down, and I'll show you another spell that I really like, when we pop this down, just like that, we can then go to our second ability here. Right, so now we're doing double tick damage on top of that. Another really good thing here is that we can weave the abilities in. So if we're popping our main ability here, we can then grab mana, and we can also pop our other ability while we're still getting those ticks. And see, we're mana regenning, basically kind of interweaving that. I just like to have it down on the ground to get those ticks, and then on top of that, also doing our other ability. It's nice for when a boss is not moving a ton, and I find it fairly decent. It's a nice little secondary ability that you can have on your secondary weapon. Now, you could run a melee weapon. You could also run a seal. I like to run 2 staffs typically, but I've also ran other seals, and I've also ran a melee weapon when it does have magic, as you can cast those. Those are fairly decent. Now, another ability you saw here was Stars of Ruin. I've seen a lot of people use this ability, Stars of Ruin. I'm actually not the hugest fan of it, and it's because of how much mana it does use. Now, when we cast Stars of Ruin, you're going to see just how much mana we actually do cast off here. It is literally our entire bar, and we don't get as much as we spent back. So we're actually going to run out here. You see how I just showcased that? We can no longer cast Stars of Ruin. Even after 1 cast of Stars of Ruin, you cannot grab it back. We get 2 here. We get the 2 proc. with it, which makes it nice, but I like to have it with 1 proc. That's why I don't like Stars of Ruin, and instead of Stars of Ruin, I actually do like to run Collapsing Stars. Now, this is an ability that's actually not the easiest to get, but when you do get it, it is super strong on bosses, and you do get your full mana spent back, which is just so nice that you can continuously cast this one and actually get your mana back. So unless you have a ton of FP regeneration, I wouldn't use Stars of Ruin. It's a great ability, it does a ton of damage, but you have to weave in 2 of your magic cocktails, so it's going to be kind of hard to put out damage, and I just feel like this one puts out way more damage in the time period. And I also like this one for bosses just because of how far the range is and how quick it is. And again, you can pull out, we can't use the magic cocktail because it'll use it, but we will get that mana regeneration back from it. So those are my favorite 2 spells, is the Magnum Shot and the Collapsing Stars, if you can get those. If you can't get those, these are for the day 3 bosses, so that's kind of what you're weaving with. Another really good ability here, if you didn't want to utilize the Magnum Shot, you can also use the Night Comet. Now, if you didn't know, mobs actually can't dodge the Night Comet. It does a really good amount of damage, but you're going to need to weave in your cast time each time, as you see, because if we spend 2, we're actually spending nearly our full bar, and we're not going to get it fully back. So we do need to weave in a cocktail every single time, unless you have a ton of reduced FP. It's another reason why I don't like that one, and why I like the Magnum one, because I can get 2 off of 1 proc. And so we need to be able to manage our mana. That's the biggest thing, or the most massive thing with Recluse, is being able to manage your mana. So in my opinion, Magnum Shot is still better because you can weave in 2 cocktails with this one off 1 cast. When you're running low on a boss fight, you don't have any of the Starlights, you gotta use this one. It's really good, and it's low FP cost. And then also Collapsing Stars. There's some notable mentions here, like Loretta's Mastery. Loretta's Mastery does fairly decent. It's not like a terrible ability. It has really long range, which is nice, but it has a super long cast time, and there are abilities that will do more damage than it overall. But you'll see we can weave in a few here, but now we can't get it back. So it's essentially, it does cost more. It's just like the Stars of Ruin, and that's why it's usually not very good. But it does have decent range, and if you have a lot of FP, it can come in utilization there. So overall, really, we're focusing on Shattering Crystal here. Shattering Crystal is so good for day 1 and 2, as well as the night bosses there. On the final day, though, I wouldn't recommend Shattering Crystal unless you're comfortable in melee range. When we do move on to those endgame bosses, as you'll see, I love to use the Magnum Shot as well as the Collapsing Stars if you can get it, or the Night Comet. There's also the Gravity Well, which isn't bad. It's just like Collapsing Stars. It's a little bit easier to get, but you can interweave 1 and actually get more mana than you spent back. That's why I really like that one, because it does decent damage. It's very fast, and when you weave in your things, you get more than you regenerated back. That one also is nice. I do like, if you don't want Magnum Shot, you want something range, you could also take this one called Rancor, which is really good. So Gravity Well here, and then we also have Rancor, which is here, Rancor Call. Rancor Call is a really decent one too. It is very slow though, however, as you can see, it does take quite some time. But we can interweave these things in here and get a bunch of mana that we spent back just off 1 cast. So we can actually cast this twice, and we'll be able to get all the mana we spent back. And it does decent damage overall, and we can also interweave another ability into it. And so we're doing 2 times the damage there on top of that, and then we can grab our mana back and still have enough in between there. So it's really nice to have both of these abilities. Both Rancor and the Gravity Well are really nice on the day 3 bosses as well, and even the other bosses. It's just going to be a bit rough with NPCs and AoE damage, as you're only doing that single target damage, and I really would recommend the Shattering Crystal, as that does apply to our Crystalline Sorcery, which you saw earlier, that we had on one of our relics. That does cover for these spells, the early game and end game guide there. Hoping that helps overall. This really does play in part. I feel like I do a ton of damage. I'm always constantly tanking bosses or taking their aggro, although mages usually do. And I've also had my Remembrance 8 completely done, so I have done the last boss and completed that. And as you see here, we do have the Remembrance outfit. I just have the Darkness one as well, as I spent 35 on that one and like that one over Remembrance. If you have any questions or tips and tricks that you guys do need to utilize for Recluse, I will try to help as much as I can, and how to basically spend your FP and your mana points and what to focus on there. Overall, that's about cover for today's video. If you like, subscribe, and until the next one. Deuce.